Tonight's big stories. The House of Representatives has adopted the Senate's version of the Maharlika Investment Fund just hours after it was approved by the upper house. This is part of Congress's bid to pass priority measures ahead of President Marcos's second SONA. What are the major changes under this latest version of the Maharlika, and what safeguards are put in place? We'll find out later on in the show.
Typhoon Betty is set to exit the Philippine area of responsibility, leaving minimal damage in its trail. But authorities warn that it could still enhance the habagat, which could bring more rain in the coming days. We'll take a look at the latest in different provinces later on in the program.
Tito Soto, Vic Soto, and Joey De Leon announced that they are parting ways with Tape Incorporated, sending shockwaves across the country. We'll look at how the events unfolded later on.
Welcome to the big story. I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Chicky Verhel.
And I'm Sean Yao.
Big news today.
Big news today. It's not about the typhoon. It's still there, but it's not the biggest headline. Of course, Maharlika Investment Fund passing
2 a.m. kagabi.
Tapos past 12 the night before that, ang sisipag ng ating mga lawmakers.
Now we know what can be done if there's political will.
Yes,
right?
Amen. All right, so full circle na tayo, no?
The biggest headline for today that we're talking about, the House of Representatives agrees to adopt the Senate version of the Maharlika Fund bill. This brings the measure a step closer to being a law. So apart from it being passed last night by the Senate, alam natin na magkaiba nga yung version ng Senate at Congress. Right. Ngayon, inadopt na lamang yung Senate version na yan.
And yun nga, sobrang bilis nga nito, no? I think we've only been talking about it for about 2 weeks, and it has been just 9 days since President Bongbong Marcos certified this as urgent. And as you said, Gretch, ito yung nagagawa. Kaya naman pala. Sana all.
And right after it gets passed by the Senate and Congress, it goes now to the Bicameral Conference
Committee. Who, by the way, sobrang sipag din. So,
nagtatrabaho sila ngayon?
Nagtatrabaho pa rin sila hanggang ngayon.
So, Gretch, ano ba tong Senate version of the bill? Ano bang in-adopt nitong House? What are the major changes from the initial versions?
Well, let's start first on how senators voted on the measure last night. The Maharlika Investment Fund bill got 19 yes votes in the Senate, 1 no vote, and 1 abstention. Opposition Senator Risa Hontiveros voted against the measure, while Senator Nancy Binay abstained. Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel was not present during the voting, as well as Cheese Escudero and Presidential Sister Amy Marcos. And we also mentioned that they were the ones who had reservations.
But I find it a bit weird that they didn't just show up and vote no.
Well, sabi ni Senator Coco na parang ayaw niya, he wants nothing to do with it, right? He said it on the show.
Pero, you know, trabaho lang, di ba?
Well, perhaps the biggest amendment agreed upon by senators in the latest version is related to its funding. The lawmakers agreed to explicitly ban government social welfare entities like the GSIS and SSS to invest in the Maharlika Investment Fund. The latest version also provides that investments from the Land Bank, the DBP, and other government financial institutions should not exceed 25% of their net worth.
The Senate also approved Senator Hontiveros' proposal to disqualify any person from the MIF Board of Directors who, within 5 years before being appointed, has a pending administrative or judicial case relating to fraud, plunder, corruption, and similar crimes. The Senate version of Maharlika also imposes heavier penalties for any anomalous activity concerning the fund. Now, let's go back to funding. For the first and second fiscal year upon the effectivity of the Maharlika Fund, 100% of the Bangko Central's total dividends shall be remitted to the Maharlika Investment Corporation, or MIC. Senator Win Gatchalian initially sought to remove dividends from the BSP as a funding source, but this amendment was rejected by Senator Mark Villar, noting that the move is a priority of the economic managers. And of that seed capital of the MIF, 50 billion pesos will be coming from the Land Bank, 25 billion pesos naman from the DBP, and the national government will be chipping in 50 billion pesos. All right, at this point, let's check in on how that Bicameral Conference Committee is coming along. We have Camille Samonte working over there just as hard, guys, as our senators and congressmen. Hi, Camille. What do you have for us?
Sean, the House of Representatives has formally adopted the Senate version of the Maharlika Investment Fund bill. Senate President Mig Zubiri says it's House Speaker Martin Romualdez who agreed to adopt the Senate version of the bill. Now that the measure has been approved by both chambers, it will be sent to the Office of the President for his signature to enact the MIF. Sean?
Thank you for that, Camille Samonte.
Economic managers welcomed the Senate's passage of the Maharlika bill. In a statement, Finance Secretary Ben Diokno commends the prioritization of the proposed investment fund in the Senate. Diokno said that the Senate leadership ensured that the bill reflects the Marcos administration's objective of creating a profitable and secure investment fund. Budget Secretary Amina Pangandaman, meanwhile, described the bill's passage as a great stride towards the country's long-term progress. She believes the measure will boost the government's efforts for economic growth. President Bongbong Marcos, meanwhile, assures the public that the government has no intention of using state pension funds as seed money for the Maharlika Investment Fund. But the president clarifies that the state-run pension funds can decide to invest in the MIF at their own discernment. The recently passed Senate version of the bill, however, already prohibits pension funds from investing in the MIF.
We have no intention of using the pera, kukuha tayo ng pera ng pension fund. We will not use it as a seed fund. However, if a pension fund, which is what pension funds do, is they invest. If the pension fund decides that the Maharlika fund is a good investment, it's up to them if they want to invest in it.
Here to share with us his 2 cents on this latest version of the Maharlika Investment Fund Bill is global investment banker Stephen Kuunyeng. Welcome to the big story again, Stevie. What do you think about the Senate version of the bill having been adopted? These 2 years or 2 fiscal years where BSP's 100% of the BSP's dividends will be going to fund as seed money. What do you think about that? Is that a good idea?
Well, okay, first of all, thank you for inviting me again. Second, if one argues that central banks can never be big enough because crisis always demands the capital, you could see with Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic, to assuage the fears, the Federal Reserve reopened its discount window, which was done in 2008, so that you could discount 100% of the value of treasury notes. And that used, actually over $100 billion of capital, of funding. And we don't have a reserve currency. We just have whatever the central bank has. The feeling is it's not prudent to hamstring the central bank by basically, rather than letting them build up their capital base by redeploying 100% of their dividends and profits, by allocating it to this. Now, I do note that at least the final version says the Monetary Board can say we need it for this emergency, so we're not sending it now. But my worry is the nature of an emergency is such that you don't know it ahead of time. That's why you build up the reserves to as big an amount as you can when you don't need it, so that when you need it, you have it. But let me give my general comments, if you wish, on what was passed, or I can continue to answer your questions.
Go ahead, Stevie, please.
Okay, so first of all, I'm on record saying I was in favor of a national development fund, not what the Congress had preliminarily passed, which was a sort of one-size-fits-all, I can do everything kind of fund. They were allowed to buy foreign bonds, invest in this, have sub-funds, which I thought was frankly unwieldy and unnecessary. So let me say, the first Senate version was an improvement on the Congress one, and the final version was a further improvement, so at least it got better as it went along. Now, would it have been written the way I would have preferred it? No, but I'm not the president and I'm not the Senate. But at least it got better. Now, what for me are the two issues which are not clear, and it might be because of the haste, and perhaps if they're implementing rules or guidelines that didn't clarify it. The purpose in the Senate bill seems to imply, without stating it, that it's for national development. So that would assume it's to be used domestically only. But if you read what the fund can invest in, it says foreign bonds, sukuks. Basically it says I can invest in practically anything. Now, if I was going to be charitable, I would suggest that means that I can invest in everything, but it's got to be for Philippine-related projects. It just could be in this manner, this form, or another. But technically, the purpose is one thing, but what I'm allowed to invest in, which is delineated in the law, seems to be much broader and more open. So in other words, it's really kind of up to the fund managers and the board to decide what to do or not. Now, maybe part of that is because upfront they're being asked to put 75 billion pesos. So let's say roughly $1.5 billion. But there aren't projects yet to invest. So there are two ways you can run a fund, a private equity type fund, which is what this is. What is commonly done commercially is you make commitments, and when the investments are approved, you call on those commitments as needed. You don't pre-fund it, you call as needed. I mean, I've invested in private equity firms and their funds, and that's the way it is. Let's say I said I'm going to put X. Let's say the fund is worth $5 billion. They'll make an initial investment of 500 million. They'll call 10%. And it's called as you invest. This one implies that at the very least, 75 billion pesos will be funded upfront, regardless of whether there's an immediate use or not. So maybe the liberty and flexibility in where to invest it is where they park it first.
Sir Stephen, I have a question on because if you are to invest, of course, you'd expect returns. And if this will be used as a national development fund, not all, as Senator Robin Padilla said, not all types of infrastructure you can profit from or can expect a return from in the short term or the medium term. How do you think foreigners will be incentivized to invest in the MIF?
Well, first, it's not even clear here how they're going to invite foreigners to invest if you read the law. I don't see it. I mean, I was only sent a copy by your office very kindly a few hours ago, but it's not very clear to me. And second, it's like they're proceeding regardless of whether they're foreign investors or not. I'm not sure that's a priority initially. Now, but second, the whole idea of, that's why there's a difference between a private equity fund that's a regular fund, a buyout fund, and a infrastructure-driven private equity fund. Because infrastructure is long gestation, like a toll road will be given a 25-year concession. A power plant will run for that time. You are expecting low returns initially and to recoup more returns as the project matures. And like say in a toll road, utilization of the road increases. So it's not like I'm saying, how will I attract people? No, you're attracting. See, for example, let's say I'm a state pension fund. I'm CalPERS, California Pension System, and I invest in many different types of private equity firms, equities, debt, and so on. There are aspects that I put in for short-term immediate return. There's other investments I put in seeking a higher return, but of medium duration. And there are other aspects where I'm expecting an even higher return, but longer duration. So it's not like I have $10 million, I'm going to put all of it here. No, it's going to say, if I was a fund and I had 10 billion to allocate, I'll put 8 billion in debt instruments. I'll put 1 billion in equities and 1 billion in private equity firms of various types like this. So you're attracting, or should be attracting, the long-term nature return of a funder. Not all the funder will say it's this or nothing.
Right.
They allocate portions. So that's how you answer it. But all should make money.
Okay, Mr. Kunyeng, just a two-pronged question so we can have a more comprehensive answer. The first part is, kasi Senate minority, which is Senator Coco Pimentel and Risa Ontiveros, have criticized the bill, saying it could lead to more debt. Repeatedly, they've said this. That's the first question is, what do you think of this, or do you agree with this? And the second part is, does it have enough safeguards?
Well, as I mentioned to you in the previous time not you, but another sister show of yours, The Chiefs, nobody's talking about the management. And when a fund raises money, they always talk about their track record and the track record of their managers. So you can put all the safeguards you want. If the management is incompetent, they will not make money. If the management is corrupt, they will find a way around it. So at a certain point, you cannot legislate the avoidance of this. You have to basically trust the management and the appointing authorities that they will not be corrupt. Now, there are other ways to do it. One is to pay commensurate wages. Like, let's be blunt. What is one of the most effective government institutions? The BSP, the central bank. What is one of the reasons they are very effective? They're paid well, equivalent to private sector pay, and they are depoliticized, and they have career paths. The deputy governors and the managing directors, all that, they have security of tenure, they have market-based pay. And so it's a very well-run, very professional, very effective, but fully government-owned entity. So at least the Maharlika Fund says the pay will be like this, like that, will be commensurate to what is in the private sector.
All right, good
so
point
theoretically, they could hire people of appropriate quality and expertise because the fund allows them to be paid that way.
Tsaka baka yung 5 years, dapat, yung 5 years na walang kaso ng fraud, dapat gawing 10 o 15, no? O wala talaga.
For me, 5-10 years is irrelevant because for me, it's your record. Look,
That's true.
in
Track
any
record as a fund
I
manager.
can be sued so what? Let's assume I was sued 6 years ago and I lost. Should you hire me anyway?
That's true.
I mean, it's more like if there is a serious case and it's dismissed because somebody was just giving me a hard time and wanted to extort me, that's one thing. But it's more like, I think it's just, why would you even consider somebody
Good points.
if he ran an investment scam, whether it's 1 year ago or 100 years ago?
Right,
Thank you
Stevie,
so
like
much.
so much food for thought. But I'm afraid we have run out of time. We're gonna have to leave it there.
Our global
All right, thanks,
investment
Jen.
banker, Stephen Kunyeng, thank you so much for weighing in on that. Now, as critics of the Maharlika Fund argue, utang ang marami tayo. Di ba?
14 billion lang naman. 14 trillion, sorry.
13.9 trillion as of April. Up 54 billion since March. And the increase is due to higher foreign debt, a weaker peso, and inflationary measures, of course. But
Yeah, that's right. So the government
Eto.
is insisting that our debt levels remain manageable, though, at almost 40 trillion pesos. What do economists really think, Gretch?
Our news team was able to talk to RCBC chief economist Mike Ricafort, and he said that there is a need to minimize external debt and focus more on domestic borrowing. He explained that as long as the peso remains weak, it will continue to play a factor in our growing debt.
Lahat ng utang ng Pilipinas kino-convert to pesos. So pag kinonvert mo to pesos yun, nadagdagan ng 10% yung principal ng yung loan amount na hiniram ng ating bansa, ng ating pamahalaan, in US dollars and in other foreign currency.
Given this current debt level, what should the country watch out for? Let's bring in Brian Basa for more. Brian, go ahead, please.
Hi, Chiki. Just to add to what you ladies are discussing, RCBC economist Mike Ricafort says proper management of the Maharlika Investment Fund is crucial. He adds we cannot afford any losses since a huge amount of taxpayers' money is involved. He also says credit raters are watching, so poor debt management may affect the country's credit standing. Back to you.
Thanks, Brian.
Up next, Typhoon Betty is seen to exit the Philippine area of responsibility by tomorrow at the earliest. Though it never hit land, Betty is leaving a trail of destruction across extreme northern Luzon. The details when we return. Keep it here on One News. Here on One News.
Alright, eto na. Ang hinahantay natin, konti na lang. Typhoon Betty is on its way out of the Philippine area of responsibility. And while this cyclone was not as destructive as expected, it did manage to leave damage to several areas. In Baguio City, rain showers from the typhoon saturated the soil and caused chunks of rock to slide down along Marcos Highway, affecting road traffic. Motorists passing along the Tuba-Benguet portion of the highway also had a hard time driving with thick fog affecting road visibility. In Baler, Aurora, strong ocean waves destroyed a seawall in Barangay Sabang. Some cottages in Barangay San Luis were also knocked down by strong winds. And up north in Cagayan, the weather is starting to get better with just the occasional cloudy skies and rain showers. The typhoon was mostly felt in the extreme northeastern part of the province, but it did manage to destroy some establishments, particularly a warehouse in Port Irene. Authorities are thankful that Typhoon Betty only left minimal damage and that no deaths have been reported so far.
Yun po ang lagi natin sinasabing pangunahin nating objective. Maganda naman po. Kaya lang, hindi naman po tayo magre-relax. Marahil hanggang Biyernes bago tayo magsabing makaka-relax na ng kahit papano.
Pag-asa is expecting Typhoon Betty to exit the PAR by Thursday night. It's also expected to weaken further into a tropical storm. Currently, only Batanes and the eastern portion of the Babuyan Islands are under signal number 1. Pero wag po muna magkapakampante ha. Typhoon Betty is still expected to enhance the southwest monsoon in the coming days, causing rainfall in the Ilocos region, Cordillera, Bicol region, Western Visayas, and Mimaropa.
Lakas na ng ulan no kanina.
O, di ba?
Super lakas. So, yun nga,
At
sabi ko
mahangin
nga,
pa rin, pero
pagkatapos ng ito palabas na si Betty, tsaka umulan. Pero yun nga, dahil nga sa habagat yun.
Oo.
Oh. 5 more suspects in the murder of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo recanted their confessions before the Manila Regional Trial Court earlier today. The latest suspects to recant are Winrich Estures, Eugelio Gonyon Jr., John Louis Gonyon, Joric Labrador, and Benji Rodriguez. The 5 are represented by lawyer Jord Valenton, who claimed his clients were tortured into confessing to participating in the assassination. They also confessed to their participation in the massacre and tagged Negros Oriental Congressman Arnie Teves as the mastermind after they were arrested, but later on said they were tortured into doing this confession. All 11 suspects, including alleged co-mastermind Marvin Miranda, filed a motion to quash, claiming their arrests were done illegally. And some breaking news from the lower house. The Ethics Committee recommends another 60-day suspension to be imposed on Representative Arnie Teves. The panel also wants Teves to forfeit his membership in committees. The committee found that Teves' unauthorized absences were aggravated by his act of seeking political asylum in Timor-Leste, resulting in his failure to perform his duties as House member. Teves' initial 60-day suspension lapsed last week. And barely months after the Degamo slay, Negros Oriental has lost another provincial chief. Negros Oriental Governor Carlo Guido Reyes died today, almost 3 months since assuming the post last March after the killing of former Governor Roel Degamo. Reyes reportedly died of a terminal illness. However, no other details have been disclosed. This is the first time in more than a decade that Negros Oriental lost its governors in back-to-back instances. Back in 2010, then Governor Emilio Macias died a few weeks after winning the gubernatorial elections. He was succeeded by Agustin Perdices, who died January the following year. The deaths of Macias and Perdices eventually paved the way for Degamo to assume governorship. Negros Vice Governor Manuel Sagarbarria will now take over as governor of the province.
Up next, girls, the iconic trio of Tito, Vic, and Joey, aka TVJ, will be leaving the production company behind Eat Bulaga. The details on their departure when we return. You're still watching the big story here on One News. What else do we have tonight, girls?
So maraming bumulaga. Oo.
Ito nga bumulaga, Eat Bulaga.
Well, Eat Bulaga host Tito Soto, Vic Soto, and Joey De Leon announced their decision to part ways with television production exponents or Tape Incorporated, the producer of the noontime show Eat Bulaga. In an online post, Tito Soto thanked former Tape president Tony Tuviera, whom he considers as family. Joey De Leon looked back at their Eat Bulaga journey and expressed gratitude for all the networks they had been part of. For his part, Vic Soto offered his gratitude for all the advertisers that teamed up with the show. The trio also expressed gratitude to their loyal followers they call the Barkads and the broadcast networks that aired their program for the last 44 years.
Karangalan po namin na kami nakapaghatid ng tuwa't saya mula Batanes hanggang Hulo at naging bahagi ng buhay ninyo. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. Hanggang sa muli, saan man kami dalhin ng tadhana, tuloy ang 1,001 tuwa.
Let's check in on what the public had to say about the departure of TVJ from Tape Incorporated. Some netizens were saddened about the announcement of TVJ, saying that they have become a huge part of their lives growing up. Former contestants and audience goers of Eat Bulaga also shared some of their memories while on the show. And some GMA celebrities also chimed in, thanking the show for having them, while some also shared photos of their time with Eat Bulaga hosts. And one of the show's hosts, Maine Mendoza, posted photos of Eat Bulaga's set as she expressed her gratitude to the Dabarkads and to the show itself. And lastly, in an Instagram post, Joey De Leon simply said that they are not signing off, but rather they are just taking a day off.
GMA Network also gave a statement to today's big departure. It read, "We are saddened by today's unexpected turn of events with regard to Eat Bulaga. GMA has been the home of Eat Bulaga for many years, and we still have a block time agreement with Tape until the end of 2024 for the noontime slot. Together with all the Filipino fans, we pray for a smooth and swift resolution of their issues. Maraming salamat sa patuloy na suporta, mga kapuso."
And of course, before we go, here's our big picture for tonight. Of course, what else? We can't have a picture of the Maharlika Fund, so we have Tito Soto, Vic Soto, and Joey De Leon, TVJ, standing in the middle of their set, bidding it goodbye. Definitely so much emotions right now from them and the fans that have supported them throughout the years. Gretch, you were gonna say something.
Kasi hindi sila pinayagan na magsalita na dun sa kanilang programa. So they did that on YouTube. Very emotional moment for the trio, of course. And also, a lot will change with the media landscape here in the Philippines. They have been an iconic show when it comes to appointment viewing. And I'm curious, kasi nagpasalamat si Maine Mendoza. Sabi niya, hanggang sa muli, maraming salamat Eat Bulaga. I'm curious about who owns Eat Bulaga, the title. I mean, is it TVJ? Will they carry it with them if they do transfer to another network? Will it remain with GMA? Ano ba yung bago ano? Yun ang mga katanungan
Marami
natin.
pang moving parts as of now. So what about you? We'd love to know your thoughts. We've heard Gretchen's 2 cents. Our comment sections are always open. Just simply send them in and we'll check them out. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
And of course, we can't end the show without, saying, we've been blessed to have experienced yung 1,000,000 isang
Isang
tuwa.
tuwa.
Oo naman.
This has been the big story. Thank you and good night.